You're listening to the Patriot Nation podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation podcast, of course, brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports wagering partner of CLNS Media. Go to FanDuel.com/Boston and sign up today. Don't do that, though, if you are in college and under 21 and potentially have a chance to go to the NFL. Don't do that. Don't do it. Only do it if you're over 21 and you're legally creating one. And especially don't do it if you're going to fake your name. If you're going to fake it and you're going to create a fake account, maybe don't do it with your full name and your jersey number. I'm just, just a pro tip for you guys out there. If you are planning on breaking the law, don't do it with your full name and jersey number.
Yeah. We hope you're all smart enough to either not break the law or if you do it and not get caught.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Unbelievable. So that's the Kayshon Boutte news. If you haven't heard, somehow, if you're under a rock, Kayshon Boutte apparently lied and created a fake account, well, a real account, but under a fake name, which was his name, but pretended to be 21 and made like 9,000 bets. First of all, Can I just tell you, now I don't know how much he gambled. I don't know how much money he put in, but he took out like $600,000. So like, maybe Kayshon Boutte should retire from the NFL and become, become like a gambling expert. He could be, listen, there's a spot here. We are famously bad at gambling. There's a spot here on this podcast for Kayshon Boutte, and we will split the money with him like 90. Just give us like 10%, like 90-10.
Yeah.
Just come on the show. Yeah. I'm sure CLNS will pay you, right? Come on the show. CLNS will pay you. Just give us a 10% cut.
Our insider in gambling.
And you're our guy. You're gambling insider. Yeah. I mean, it's no brainer.
Yeah. Man, that is and the so school stupid. Knew. They said, I believe the school knew back in July.
That was the word, yeah.
I don't know. I tend to think at least some people around the locker room probably knew before that, because I don't believe that a star college athlete bets hundreds of thousands of dollars and doesn't tell any of his teammates. Like, I just don't believe that's what's going on.
Right.
And if his teammates know, he's got enough of a reputation that some of the coaches have an idea what's going on.
100%.
And this is the way things went with Boutte declaring for the draft was so bizarre, because he announced that he was returning to LSU, and within like 48 hours announced, actually, I'm going to the draft. And that never happens if the school wants you to come back.
Right.
So you put all of these things together, and it's a concerning picture around what he was coming out, and makes you wonder what NFL teams knew, if they knew this was going on, or at least if they knew he had a reputation. But the Patriots made as many picks as they did, and they got a good receiver out of this draft. So I don't think it hurts the Patriots too much. But having two straight drafts with somebody getting arrested is really not the streak we're going for right now.
Not ideal. So, and it's, I do think it's a 6th-round pick. Like, you knew going into it was a shot in the dark, and you looked at it and just said, like, hey, probably not going to be anything, but he put up crazy numbers his rookie year, looked really good in practice, had the all-time receiving record for yards in a game at LSU, where places like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase were there. And let's just see, right, and Odell Beckham. Let's just see what happens. Let's just see, right? 6th round, look what do you get to lose, right? And it seems as though he's not going to be on the team anymore. But whatever, you lost a 6th round pick out of it. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it'll all depend on how the case plays out too.
That's true.
Because this, it's not, and the Jack Jones thing was similar in the regard that they're not. Neither are dangerous crimes. Neither on its own is necessarily some heinous, immoral act.
True.
True. So, he might get cut. He might not. The Patriots kind of put out a statement saying nothing earlier today on this one. So we'll wait and see. But I also think anybody who's projecting the roster for this team, when you're projecting a way too early 53-man roster right now, Kayshon Boutte is not on that
That's
for
correct.
next year without things changing with his play on the field anyway. So it was already an uphill climb for him, and at this point, it's an uphill climb for him to be on the roster in May. We're going to start there and see if he'll be on the roster in May. And I hope he figures it out. And for a guy who had off-field concerns coming out of college, this is not what he needed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so, and look, it is what it is. Gary asked, and Thad already answered him, but Gary asked, has he been suspended yet? He's not been suspended. No, nothing has, nothing's come out about it officially, but
Yeah,
it's not a good look. It doesn't look good.
But I don't know exactly where the NFL's purview falls here either, because this is it's obviously illegal things, and there's a felony charge in the stuff for him. But he didn't do any of this in the NFL. As far as I can tell, it all happened pre-NFL.
Correct.
So if you're the NFL, you may look at this and say, "Hey, this isn't our problem." We're going to let the legal system handle it and go from there. And I also don't, because it was serious amounts of money. I don't know how Louisiana is going to handle this. Like, there's a felony charge in there, and this is one of those things that, I kind of doubt they're going to pursue that harshly. They may just go for a plea deal here and say, do not do this again. But they can pursue this aggressively. And, I wouldn't be surprised if a state does, especially a state like Louisiana with high-end college athletics, may want to set a standard early of this is unacceptable, and we have these laws for a reason. We do not want these college athletes who donors in our state are paying millions of dollars to have come play for our school, then turning around and spending that money to gamble on our school. Kayshon Boutte was literally gambling on his own lines.
Yeah.
And he gambled on the over and produced the under, unfortunately for him.
Well,
but it's how it goes sometimes. So it wouldn't shock me to see the state go pursue higher charges and really prosecute this to the fullest extent. We will see, but I'm sure if this ends up in any actual prison time for him whatsoever, he's not going to stay in New England because there's no reason to keep him around at that point.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes, but it doesn't look good, especially for a guy who really had a tough time kind of doing anything this year, right? So
and it's funny too, because after the first game, we kind of felt decent about him. And that was essentially his best game of the season. What was his? Did he have a catch this year?
I don't think he did. No, I don't think he did.
He had one.
He might have had a catch, right? Did he have a catch at some point?
7 targets, 2 catches, 19 yards. He had a catch at the Giants and a catch against the Colts, and that was it for him. Yep. He had 4 targets against the Eagles and 3 targets for the rest of the season.
Right, couldn't get his foot down twice.
Yeah, I think back to I think it was the old Tom Brady documentary, the Brady 6 one, where they talk about how everybody gets an opportunity in the NFL, but sometimes that opportunity is very, very thin, and you make a bad play, and your opportunity is gone, and that's it. And that could be it for Boutte. That just 4 targets in his first game and not getting his foot down. That was one of the quarterbacks who was drafted before Brady. You mentioned that, getting like 1 start in the NFL, and that was it for him. And yeah.
What, Giovanni Carmazzi?
No, I don't know if he knows that documentary exists.
That's a good point. Great point. So, all right. So let's get into the coaching stuff, which is what we want to really get into today. Is the coaching carousel in the NFL. Of course, the big news coming out today was that Raheem Morris just got hired as the Atlanta Falcons head coach. Of course, that's the only place. That's the only place that Bill Belichick has interviewed as of yet. And of course, so they did not hire him. It's confusing to me. Raheem Morris, I saw a few people were excited about Raheem Morris getting hired there. Panthers did hire their head coach as well. And we're going to kind of go around and talk about it. But, I'm curious to see what you think about it. I don't, Raheem Morris, I don't know. I don't get it.
I like it because he's both young and experienced. Like he's 47, and He's been in Atlanta before. He was actually the interim head coach in Atlanta just a couple of years ago. We've been around the NFL. He's been a defensive coach and an offensive coach. He has really good connections because of that. He was in Washington, I think, when like McVay and McDaniel and all those guys were there. He was just on the defensive side of the ball. He's been in LA opposite McVay, and sounds like you got a guy who is widely regarded as a good leader of men, and he has really good coaching connections to bring people in. It also did sound like there were some issues there with the front office in Atlanta with, getting on the same page about where to go next. And I think this is a hire who kind of fits in that in a way some of the other ones won't, which I'm sure we'll talk about here. I do like the hire for them. And I think the fact that he's likely coming with Zach Robinson as well as the offensive coordinator, which, hurts up here in New England a little bit, makes that really good for them because they got an offensive line that's ready to run that kind of system with Chris Lindstrom there. And some of those offensive weapons, I think, are going to get put to very good use there if they can find a quarterback. And he's a defensive head coach primarily who knows defensive backs. And Jesse Bates is the strength there. And the Falcons had a defense that has quietly come on as a very solid unit. And now you add a defensive head coach who I think can take advantage of that. And I don't think it's a hire that is super sexy or knocks the doors off. But I'm also, it doesn't really matter if you win the press conference. It doesn't matter if you're the Adam Schefter, hired coach announcement that gets the most likes. It matters if the guy can win. And I think he's got a nice resume that I think I see what they're going for here.
Yeah. No, you know what? I get it. I get it. I don't know. I just never thought he was very good when he was in Tampa. And maybe some new experience will help him and he'll be better than he was.
Yeah.
I also think so. I don't want to go down a conspiracy theory hole. I'm not going to do it, but I am going to pull up one, and I forgot to hear this. Old man mob. So I think it's a little strange. By the way, he says, in my opinion, Kraft is setting Bill and now Mayo to be the fall guys. I think it's a little strange that Raheem Morris gets hired. And okay, Morris gets hired. That's great. Awesome. Now they had a CEO. They're not going directly to the CEO, and I'm not sure if you saw this one or not, but they're not reporting directly to the CEO. They're reporting directly to the owner.
Yeah.
And that's interesting to me. I just don't know, right? Does Robert Kraft say something to Arthur Blank like, man, Bill is a pain in the ass to deal with, and you don't want to deal with them? And I don't know, but I don't know.
All the reports that I had heard about Atlanta were that Arthur Blank is the one who wanted Belichick, and it was the other guys in the front office who were not sold on the idea. I think they also just, have had issues figuring out what they want, and Arthur Blank's kind of setting the tone here and saying, "No, this is how things are going to go, and this is the order of operations here." Letting everybody know who's in charge.
Maybe.
And I do like Raheem Morris is an underwhelming name. I didn't think that highly of him a couple of years ago, but it's clear, at least from the impressions of people around the league, that his time in LA has helped his voice and refreshed him. I also completely forgot, he's known as a defensive coach. That's how he came up. That's what he was in Tampa. That's what he was in Washington. He was in Atlanta. He was the pass game coordinator and wide receivers coach for that Atlanta team that ended up going to the Super Bowl with Matt Ryan. So good offensive stuff there from him. So, there's some good stuff. Like his time in Tampa, I just didn't love, but I do think it's for Atlanta. It's a name that's familiar and a guy they know who also has the ties to an offensive system that everybody wants in their building these days. Right after they got rid of a guy who, was known for an offensive system, didn't deliver on it. So it seems like they're going for all right, we're going to go for a different offensive system here, but a guy who has those connections. And, I see what Atlanta's going for with Raheem Morris. And talk about the Bill Belichick of it all. I had tweeted this earlier, but I think both of the things I'm about to say are true. First, Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time. And he's got the rings to prove it. I don't really feel like I have to elaborate too much on that argument. We all know why. Right. I also would be very skeptical of hiring him if he's a 72-year-old head coach coming off of probably the worst season he's had as a head coach in over 2 decades, who is saying that he wants GM control of your team, and he's probably bringing Josh McDaniels with him, a guy who just lost his job in Las Vegas, and maybe he wants to bring Matt Patricia with him, a guy who we've all seen the issues with Matt Patricia over the last decade. If you're a GM, that's a lot. There's a lot of baggage there. And obviously, it's Bill Belichick. And you don't want to turn down Bill Belichick. But Bill Belichick with a lot of strings attached on a short window versus, in theory, Raheem Morris. When you hire him, you're thinking this can be our guy for 20, 30 years. And he can be our Bill Belichick. And,
well, and listen, you're not wrong. I just wonder. I wonder with Bill, like, is he that stubborn that he's like, I need all the control. I need Josh McDaniels. I need Matt Patricia. Like, I feel like if he went in there and they said, look, we'd love to hire you, but we need someone else with a little checks and balances. Right? I think that he'd be foolish not to at least consider that, in my opinion. I also think too, like, if he said, well, I want, McDaniels and Patricia, and they said, well, we'll hire you, but we're not hiring McDaniels and Patricia too. Then I think that's another one where he looks at it and says, I don't know, man. Like, fine. Hey, guys, I love you, but, like, I'm going to go somewhere else and try to win,
Yeah. Well, I do also think part of this is, like, Bill Belichick is 72 years old, and a lot of the people that he coached already have successful jobs elsewhere.
Right.
He's not, like, he doesn't have that big of a pool to work with in terms of potential coaches who are going to work under him, because most of the guys who worked under him have either gone out of the league doing stuff or already have successful jobs in other places and aren't going to leave those for this. And that's why it's kind of got to be like McDaniels and Patricia type of thing. And, like, let's say it's not them, and it's okay, you can hire any offensive coordinator you want.
Yeah.
Maybe Zach Robinson comes there, but how many offensive coordinators are going to want a job where, it's a short gig, 2 or 3 years probably before he retires? And you're Bill Belichick. It's kind of an awkward position because you have worked now for over 2 decades with guys who know what you like and what your style is, your whole infrastructure, and guys you're comfortable with. And now suddenly you're going to learn new tricks, and you're going to hire somebody who's never worked with you before, who you have no relationship with, and try to make that work. It's a lot to ask. And it's not like some of the younger coaches where it's, hey, yeah, we don't know each other, but we're going to be here for 4 years together and we'll figure it out, and we're both young and all that. It's a very different mentality. So it's an awkward position to be in for sure.
Yeah. Yep. So I know, and we know, Ed, that you hate Belichick. I get it. It's okay. It's all right. I know that. Here's the problem that I have. The problem that I have is this. I understand, right? I understand that people belittle other people, right? That they talk about, okay, so-and-so, and I get it. I understand, right? You didn't like the guy, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Fine. That's okay. My issue is that, and the only real reason, look, here's the way. You don't see the truth. It's okay. But here's the big thing for me, right? Here's the real issue for me. I don't care about Bill Belichick. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. He could retire right now. He's the GOAT, right? I tweeted this out about James Stewart, whatever the hell his name is, Jay Stu, whatever you want to call him, earlier. I don't care about Bill Belichick. He's the GOAT, period. Full stop. Doesn't matter. What I care about are morons that can't appreciate the fact that Belichick is the GOAT. That's it. He's the GOAT. Yeah. It's the way it is. Because here's the thing, right? And we can make the arguments, and you can talk about this and you talk about that. And, well, this guy got there, and this guy did this, and this guy did that. I'm sorry, dude. 01, 03, 04. You cannot tell me that was Tom Brady. You can't. You cannot tell me that was Tom Brady. And that's 3 right there. Now give me another coach that's gotten 3. Andy Reid has 2. Could have a 3rd, maybe. He has Patrick Mahomes, right? Who did Patrick Mahomes lose to? Tom Brady and Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the type of stuff where Peyton Manning, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, couldn't get by Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I'm sorry, did Peyton Manning play Tom Brady? Was Tom Brady on the field when Peyton Manning was on the field? Because I don't think he was. I'm fairly certain, at least, that he wasn't. You know who was on the field was the defense that was being controlled by Bill Belichick. So those are the things. That's the problem for me. That's the problem that I have, right? And people talk about the modern era, and Ed's right. People talk about the modern era, and and he doesn't like this, and he won't change, and he's resistant to this, and he's resistant to that, and so on and so forth. But like the decision making that he's made, and the coaching decisions, the in-game adjustments. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl. That's one of the greatest moves in the history of the NFL. In the history of the NFL, him not calling a timeout.
And they had it scouted and prepped too.
Right.
Which is like forget
100%.
We're talking about in-game decision making. Forget that. The scouting and the prep that he had his team ready for was ridiculous. And it's one of the things that always gets brought up when you talk about is Tom Brady the GOAT, which some people have made the discussion again, and like I've said on here, I'm not entertaining that discussion. But what people will say is, wins aren't a quarterback stat. Well, wins are a head coach stat. Wins are a general manager stat. For 23 years, 24 seasons, whatever it was, Bill Belichick was the guy in charge of the outcomes for New England Patriots football as a manager and a head coach. And in that time, they won a record number of Super Bowls and went to the 8th AFC Championship games, and he picked the rosters and he coached the guys up, and just that run alone. And that's not even talking about his time as a defensive coordinator or the things he did before New England, where he also showed he was excellent. Or some of the, a lot gets talked about with the Bill Belichick tree of like, oh my God, everything that comes from this guy stinks. Take a look at front offices around the NFL. Go pull up like the 2010 Patriots Wikipedia page and look at the front office, and then just notice how the link for every single one of those names is blue, and you can click on it, and all those guys went elsewhere to have successful jobs. His front office legacy is ridiculous. You go back to his time in Cleveland, it was on his staff Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach of all time. Ozzie Newsome, who is now became one of the greatest general managers of all time.
Yeah,
he has a fantastic legacy of personnel and coaches and front office guys coming from him, drafting players who become exceptional coaches. We've seen a lot now. People talk about his tree a lot because he has a ton of coaches coming from his tree because he's coached for a long time, and people want the fruits of a tree that produces that much fruit. There's going to be a lot of bad apples when that happens, but
that's the way it goes.
He's the greatest to ever do it. He's got second most wins ever, 6 Super Bowls as a head coach, 2 more as a coordinator. You're not beating that.
Well, and let's be clear about this, because I want to be clear about this too, because I don't want to swing too far either way, right? People need to understand Bill Belichick would not have 6 Super Bowls without Tom Brady. Tom Brady would not have 6 Super Bowls, 7, but he would not have the 6 he got with the Patriots, and I believe he wouldn't have 7 without Tom Brady. And so, without Bill Belichick, I'm sorry. And so, they're tied together, right? He's a coach. Bill Belichick's a coach. He's an extremely good coach, but even the best coaches can't win with bad talent. It's not possible.
And he picked the talent.
Right. And so
the guys on the team.
Correct. And so here's the problem, right? Here's the problem. The issue that I have is that when you look at it, you look at this situation and you say, okay, well, he hasn't hit on his talent evaluation in the last 7 years. And that is undeniably true. I think anyone that looks at what he's done with talent evaluation, 100%, that's totally true. But again, that doesn't discount what he did for the 20 years before that, right? And that's where I start to get frustrated, is people just have that recency bias, and they think, well, he sucks because he doesn't win Super Bowls without Tom Brady. And it's like, no, you need really good players, right? When you lose Brady and you lose Gronk and you lose Edelman and you lose Amendola and you lose and go down the list and you lose Hightower and then you lose McCourty and then they lost all of their good players at once. All of them left at once. They all left.
Yeah.
And so of course you're left with nothing.
When I think people focus way too much on the fact that they didn't replace those guys fast enough, and not enough on the fact that they had a similar exodus in the years, between 2004 and 2009, 2010, basically,
Yeah.
of the early dynasty guys, and the fact that they were able to replace those guys and arguably have an even better run in the 2010s than they did in the 2000s is wild. The fact they're able to go 3 and 4 years and a perfect season in the first half of that and follow it up with, the unanimous MVP performance in Brady that they were able to put together in 2010 and a whole bunch of number one seeds and eight straight AFC Championship game appearances.
It was,
and
pretty good.
Going four Super Bowls in 5 years and you win 3 of them. All of that after you lost all of your leaders except for Tom Brady from the early dynasty is a remarkable feat. We talk about the drafting. I know that Bill hasn't been great recently, but there was this graphic put out. I don't know if you saw it. Arjun Menon, I'm definitely not saying your name correctly, so I apologize about that, who's a fantastic follow on Twitter. He's a data guy. If anybody knows what the Big Data Bowl is, it's a whole, I think, convention thingy for football people to create data projects to show different things. That's what he participates in. But he put together a graphic this week that was actually about Tom Telesco, the former GM of the Chargers, who just got hired by the Raiders to look at drafting history. It was all teams drafting since 2013 based on the percentile outcome for each pick. The Chargers with Tom Telesco were 4th from the bottom. The New England Patriots, they're at the top. The best drafting team since 2013. That's with a lot of the bad drafts. People forget how many really good drafts there were and how good they have been at hitting at late round picks in that span. And it's I think it's both true that Bill Belichick, his time was up in New England, and it's fair for teams to not hire him now, and also that he's still been a very, very, very good GM and coach for the last decade. The whole modern NFL thing I don't get that because he was the modern NFL in 2007 when he brought air raid principles to the NFL and saw a vision for Wes Welker and made that happen. He was the modern NFL, creating the 2 tight end offense in 2010 and making that work for 3 seasons that took the NFL by storm. And it was essentially an unstoppable offense there for 3 seasons.
Right.
He was the modern NFL in 2016 and 2017 with the offenses that they put together then. And it was the modern NFL in 2018 when he stopped, the revolutionary offense of the NFL of the last decade, really, in the Super Bowl. He knows how to coach in the modern NFL. I think it's just sometimes guys get old and aren't the absolute greatest thing in the world for forever. There's a shelf life on things, and you run out of adjustments.
Yeah, and I think so that's the thing for me, and that's what really pisses me off is when he doesn't get the credit he deserves. And again, no one should be saying it was all Bill and no Brady. No one should have been saying that from the beginning, right? There were people at the beginning that were saying that, and it's funny because the national narrative has changed so much. The national narrative used to be Tom Brady's a system quarterback, and he's only good because of Bill Belichick, and blah, 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 blah. Then he leaves and wins his championship somewhere else, and then all of a sudden, they still want to hate on the Patriots. So, Bill Belichick was never good, and it was only always Tom Brady, and blah, blah, blah. And so it's just funny how the narrative has changed. And so it's like, well, we fought for Brady for years. We fought for Brady, right? And now everyone's like, yeah, no, Brady's the GOAT still. Well, Mahomes is coming, and Mahomes is the GOAT. Oh, God, that drives me nuts. But, and you're right, Matt. I'm sorry, we won't talk about it. But now it was just Brady and no Belichick. And it's like, no, that's not right either. Like, it's both. It has to be both. That's the way it goes, right? And it drives me crazy. And I heard Nick Wright talking about Nick Wright. I shouldn't listen to anything Nick Wright says. But he's like, how come Tom Brady and Bill Belichick both get 100% of the credit, and then they're the greatest? And it's like, what? What are you even talking about? Like, it doesn't. Those are the things that don't make sense to me. And it's like, especially if you want to make the Patrick Mahomes argument. Patrick Mahomes is Andy Reid, who's probably the second best coach in the modern era. So it's like
fantastic.
So it's like you can't say, well, Brady had Belichick. Well, he had Reid. Like, what are we talking about here? He made 4 straight NFC Championship games with Donovan McNabb at quarterback. So, like, he's pretty good.
Yeah, well, the whole thing is so reductive too, because we're talking about NFL organizations with coaching staffs with like 15 people, 20 people on them,
Right.
and front offices with another 15, 20, or whoever big you want to get. A roster of 53 plus the practice squad and all the guys who come in and out during the season, so it's going to be way more than that number, and all the staff behind that. If your argument is that if either Bill Belichick or Tom Brady had any other successful people around them, that it invalidates your success, you just don't know the sport.
Right.
It's a team sport where the team's like 100 people large at the end of the day. If you think that you're winning Super Bowls with only 2 of those people being good, I don't know what you've been watching for the last couple of decades.
That's not
it
possible.
takes a full effort from everybody. So not invalidating it by saying he had good people around him, and it's why Brady and Belichick are each 100%. They did exactly what they were asked for a very long time and made it work. And you don't get the success you get without them and all of the other people who came in and did what they did. You can recognize the greatness of one without taking away from the greatness of any of the other people who were involved in winning 6 Super Bowls in a however many year window that was.
Right. I agree. And Gary will not kick anyone out. As long as people are entitled to their opinion, even if they're terrible, as long as they're not being rude, they're entitled to their opinion. So, anyway, so do you think? Because we're going to get into the rest of the hirings around the NFL this year, but do you think that Belichick will be a head coach in 2024?
Not in the NFL. Maybe he goes to college or something. But there's 2 jobs left. Washington reportedly has already decided they don't want him. And the only other option is Seattle. And Seahawks just kind of pushed a successful coach out the front door too, because they thought he was too old and they were ready for something new. Not getting rid of Pete Carroll for Bill Belichick if age is your concern. So, unless somebody else
is younger.
But who? I don't think any of these teams in the championship games were getting rid of their head coaches either. So, unless the Bills say, "Yeah, we're getting rid of Sean McDermott a week after the game, so we can hire Bill Belichick," I think this is it. I think this might be potentially a sad ending, getting pushed into retirement essentially.
So I'm really interested in kind of where it goes. I'm fascinated with kind of how it plays out, right? And what's interesting to me is that Adam Schefter, was it Schefter or Rappaport reported that? No, maybe it was. I don't know who it was. Doesn't matter. It might have even been Florio. I don't know. But that there were multiple teams that have looked into or have discussed the possibility of Bill Belichick being their head coach. At least one of them with a current head coach on there. Maybe what's Florio had says. At least one of those teams with a head coach still employed. And so maybe it's a team like the Giants.
That was a couple weeks ago, right? Or was that
no? He reported that like yesterday. Yesterday or 2 days ago, he reported that. I know he's fan fiction Florio, but it does seem. It seems like a possibility at least. What if you're a team that was sitting there saying, "Yeah, we'll hire Belichick," but you're thinking, "Well, he's going to go to Atlanta." Well, then Atlanta doesn't hire him, and now you're sitting there saying, "Man," if you're the Giants, now the Giants, maybe probably aren't going to be good anyways. And you're in a tough division, and you're kind of tied to Daniel Jones. But I'm curious to see where that goes. Now, Adam Schefter's talked about Andy Reid retiring and maybe him taking over there. I don't see that happening. I guess it's possible. I don't see that happening though.
Theory, but I think
it'd be fascinating if he retired. If they lose on Sunday and he retires, and then Belichick, that would be interesting. I don't know, but that
It's when it's like the Giants just don't make any sense for him, I don't think, because they're stuck with Daniel Jones for at least another season. I think it's Bill trying to do it all in like 1 or 2 seasons after that and going through a rebuilding year there. Kansas City makes sense in theory. That'd be a team set up for a Super Bowl run needing a head coach. I think the issue there is I think the coaching staff there has a good relationship with Mahomes and kind of building around that. And I also think, if you're the Chiefs, and you're looking for a new head coach, if Eric Bieniemy is interested, you can bring him right back if you wanted as a head coach, a guy who's been in the building and knows what's going on. So I don't know. We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. The Chiefs in that scenario are the only other landing spot that would make sense, and I don't really see that happening. So I think this is it for Bill. I think, like I said, it's kind of sad to kind of get forced out of New England, and everybody there, what is that, 2-3 weeks ago, was talking about, we fully expect Bill to keep coaching, and I look forward to recognizing him once he's done with his coaching career. And by the end of the month, his coaching career is done.
Well, I wouldn't put it past him to go to TV for a year and then come back. You know what I mean? I don't know if he would do that.
But if age is your concern now,
well, of course. But if you're a team that sees him and hears him, and and he has that enthusiasm and talks about the game and understands it and so on and so forth, and you look at it and you're not happy with your coach and things don't work out, what I don't understand is what the hell is Dallas doing? Like, Dallas is insane to me. It's completely insane, and it's all because of Jerry Jones' ego. Jerry Jones doesn't want to give up control to Bill Belichick is really what it is.
Well, because
there's no explanation. You can't tell me that Mike McCarthy is a third of the coach of Bill Belichick.
Well, I think the issue there is that Jerry Jones, despite his reputation, has always been a pretty forgiving guy with his head coaches. He will regularly let them play out contracts, even if there's questions about what they should do. And, there's a certain conservativeness in the decision making too. Mike McCarthy is young enough now. The Cowboys had a good season this past season. Mike McCarthy genuinely did a good job for most of the season. And, if you're the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy goes somewhere else and brings that same success with him because you want to hire Bill Belichick, and things then look in Dallas a lot like they looked in New England the last couple of years, and you're an owner and you're like, wow, I just gave away what could be another decade of good coaching from Mike McCarthy for 3 years of this. That's the issue, because the age of Belichick isn't necessarily that he's out of touch or, that he doesn't have his enthusiasm. It's that he literally, I don't think, is going to be coaching for that many more years. And I think most owners, when they make a hire, envision it as this is a guy who will be here for the next decade if it goes right, type of thing. And it's a tough sell. I mean, this is the difference between Brady and Belichick. Brady, you're getting a guy who's a football player and he's on a contract. And every time he signs a contract, you're expecting him for that many years. And you see 1-year deals, you see 7-year deals. Coaches, you hire them, you expect that this guy's here as long as it goes well. And it's going to be for a decade, hopefully. It's very rare you hire a coach with the expectation that this guy's going to be here for 2 years. So it's just not a dynamic that really exists much. And owners have a harder time buying into that than a GM does into we're going to get this player for 2 years.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong about that. It is interesting to me when you look at how's it gonna transpire. I guess that's kind of the way I look at it. And I don't know. I still think, man, if you're going for broke, I get it. I understand Mike McCarthy is, in theory, a good coach, but you're trying to win a freaking championship. I mean, you have to understand now. The Dallas Cowboys last played in the NFC Championship game in 1991. 1991. It's a long ass time.
That Bill's first year as a head coach when he was in Cleveland.
I believe so. Yeah, I think 91. That sounds right. Because 94 he won in the playoffs against the Patriots.
The Patriots.
Yeah, I think it was 91 was his first year, but it's just the Cowboys. I mean, it's embarrassing. The Cowboys suck in the playoffs every single year. Every year. And again, it's been like that for 30 years. And so, for me, if I'm Jerry Jones and I'm talking about actually winning, I'm putting my money where my mouth is and saying, all right, let's go. Bill, let's go. Let's go win a damn championship. And you know what? If we go 2-3 years without winning a championship, that sucks. And we made a mistake. But, we did everything we could to get there. And I just don't think Jerry has it in him to do that.
Well, the interesting thing here is that Mike McCarthy has 1 year left on his contract. So
right.
If Bill does say, I'm going to go do TV for a year, maybe after that year, that is, I think, the only spot I look at and say, hey, if this doesn't work out. But I think Does Dak only have 1 year left on his deal? And I think CD only has 1 year left on his deal.
Yeah, those guys are coming up.
Yeah, which I mean, that's another thing. Dak, for as good of a quarterback as he's been, and he's an MVP finalist this year. He's a really good quarterback all season long, coming up small in the playoffs, and he's getting older now. And how much money do you want to give him? He's going to be commanding a lot of money because he's a good quarterback. Which, a side note here, if the Patriots don't draft a quarterback this year, or wait until the second round or third round or whatever, if they kind of take a year off investing at the position and build around the team. You go to free agency next year and Dak Prescott is available. That's a quick way to upgrade that position. And, Dak Prescott, Marvin Harrison Jr. and fixing the tackle situation in 2025 doesn't sound so bad to me.
Right. And you're not wrong about that. And so we'll see. That brings us to a whole another conversation that we got to talk about that. But anyways,
should we do a break and then come back and
let's do a break. We'll talk about
coaching stuff.
Yeah, we'll talk about the coaching hires around the league and kind of how it pertains to the Patriots. I think that we talked about the Raheem Morris thing and how Zach Robinson seems, now he's not a shoe-in necessarily, but seems like he's going to go with Raheem Morris to Atlanta instead of coming to New England, which was kind of everyone's preferred preference. But it is what it is. So let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll kind of go around the league, maybe a little quickly, go around the league, and we'll talk a little bit of Patriots before we get out of here because it is a Patriots podcast. So we'll talk a little Patriots before we get out of here. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays, find bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, Michigan, New Jersey, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, and Virginia. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelpline.ma.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. Or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. All right, so let's get around to the NFL. You want to start? I know where you want to start. You want to start in LA?
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's start in LA.
Yeah. Chargers bringing in Jim Harbaugh there, which I think was honestly the perfect hire for them. The team that's got the quarterback, but that needs a culture reset. How many years now, when we talk about the Cowboys, how many years now have the Chargers kind of been a joke for the fact that they'll have talent and they can't do anything with it, and they're routinely not a tough team and not a physical team, and they get gashed in the running game, and we see the injuries, but they've been a joke now for years on that front. Now you got, a guy who preaches toughness, and he was a fantastic leader of men, and a great quarterback coach coming in there. I think this is what they needed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, as much as I necessarily didn't want him here, it's hard to deny that he's a very, very good coach. He's going to rub people the wrong way. It's going to be an issue at times. He has a big ego. He's got a bunch of stuff going on, but he's a great coach. And, we know Justin Herbert's a very, very good quarterback. I think I'm starting to question how good he is just based on what we've seen. And so, now maybe I think if anyone can get it out of him, it's Jim. And so for me, that's the interesting part. So if Jim can't get it out of him, I think then you start to realize maybe he's not the guy that we thought he was after all.
Well, and I also think that you bring in, it sounds like Jim Harbaugh is kind of getting to pick the GM there, and that was his issue in San Francisco. He and the GM got into a power struggle and didn't get along, and that shouldn't be the case now. It's going to be his guy, and he is the leader of the organization there, which will help. And I mean, the biggest issue with Herbert there has been, hey, every game they play is you have a quarterback who can throw the ball 70 yards, but you play every game in like a 20-yard window because nobody can stretch the field for you. And Harbaugh is going to help with that. As a Michigan fan who's watched a lot of their games, he's been really good at drawing up, play action concepts to attack down the field. And Michigan has not had good receivers. They've had fine guys, but they're all day 3 picks in the NFL draft. And it made J.J. McCarthy, look decent at times. But with Justin Herbert, who is a superhuman back there in terms of throwing ability and ability to process defenses at times, I think you throw him in some of the simpler concepts where you can just let it rip and attack downfield. As long as they get the offensive line that can push in the running game, I think it's going to work for him. I think what I'm intrigued to see there is how a personality like Jim Harbaugh's works with like Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and Derwin James and some of the established leaders defensively. That is going to be interesting. But I think that was, for what the Chargers need, I think this was the right hire from a culture perspective.
I agree. And again, you talk about a loser franchise, right? I mean, that's a loser franchise. And so to get a guy that is just coming off winning a national championship, that took San Fran to a Super Bowl, I guess 12 years ago now at this point, but still, a guy that's shown that he can win in college and can win in the pros, I think that, that makes a ton of sense. And they may not win a championship. It may not work out, amazingly. They do have, they're way over the cap right now. They're gonna have to cut a bunch of old players. Yeah. To me, it's a complete teardown almost, except for Herbert, really, and some of those guys on the defense. But
a couple offensive linemen too,
and Zion Johnson and a few other guys on the offensive line, right? But you're basically redoing that whole team, and Harbaugh has a chance to kind of make it his own with potentially the elite quarterback. And I think that's what he wanted. And I think it's a perfect setup for him. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm interested in seeing how that works out. But I think it's a great hire. I really think it was a great hire by them. It made a ton of sense. And it made a ton of sense for both sides. Yep, yeah, exactly.
That I think it was there or Atlanta were the two that made sense to be if you're Jim Harbaugh. And it's a good spot. Look to play his brother next year too, which will be interesting. He'll come to Gillette Stadium. Pat's Chargers are going to see each other, and I think there's a non-zero chance that's an early season game too, just like based on how we've seen the schedule play out at times. So that might be an early game for New England. So I'm curious to see what the next moves end up being out there. By the way, while we're on the West Coast, should we talk Raiders and what they're doing there?
Yeah, let's do it.
That's Antonio Pierce. Yeah. I love Antonio Pierce as the hire for the Raiders with how much the guys love him. I hate the Tom Telesco hire as GM of the Raiders.
Yeah.
Because we just talked about the position the Chargers were in, and he's the GM who got the Chargers into that position. And their division rival looked at that and said, yes, please, I'll take it.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. And I just don't know what they were. I just don't know what they were doing. And I know Tom Telesco has I guess a reputation or whatever, but I don't know, does he? He also went out and signed J.C. Jackson, who was terrible for him. And
not a scheme fit with his own defense.
That's what I mean. That's the hard thing for me is it's not just the fact that fine, J.C. Jackson struggled a little bit because he can't play in that scheme. How do you not know that he's not a scheme fit for your defense? That's insane to me. So that one to me, I don't understand. I don't get it. And so we'll see how it goes. But they don't have a ton of talent on that team either. And so they have, I think, a long way to go. We'll see if AOC is the guy there. But I think for right now, you have to roll with him and then just kind of see what you got next year, I guess, right? And then if he sucks, then you get a top draft pick. And if he plays well, which we saw him do at times last year, I think that makes sense. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's Max Crosby and a whole bunch of guys and Devontae Adams. It's those two. You had two superstar freak level players, and then the rest of those rosters are just regular NFL players and nothing special about them. So Yeah, that's probably a 2-year, 3-year rebuild for the Raiders. And the one thing Tom Telesco gets a ton of credit for is drafting Justin Herbert. And I don't really know how much credit you get for a pick like that, but people give it to him. And if he's good at drafting quarterbacks, that's what the Raiders need. So that's, I guess, the upside. I guess that's the appeal. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, which is true. And then look, I mean, he does deserve credit for that. Because it is one of those things that, like, hey, at the end of the day, right? He did draft the right guy. Now, the thing is, right, and this is kind of it. This is similar. It's not the same, of course, but this is similar to the C.J. Stroud Bryce Young debate, right? The Texans get a ton of credit for drafting C.J. Stroud, of course, rightfully so. If they're the number one pick, do they take Bryce Young instead of C.J. Stroud? No, I don't know the answer to that question. They, of course, will tell you no. They would have taken C.J. Stroud. Obviously, they're going to say that. But would they have taken him? I don't know. Would Tom Telesco have taken Tua instead of Justin Herbert? We don't know the answer to that question because Herbert went 6 and Tua went 5. It's possible. If LA is at 5, they take Tua instead of Herbert. I don't know the answer to that question, right? But nevertheless, it doesn't matter because the pick was made and it is what it is. And so you give him credit for it. That's fine. But it's not as though I deciphered the guys and I went through and I drafted this guy and the other guy was higher up than him, but he's paid off. And it's not, you didn't draft circles around people, right? You found the guy that was there and you took him. That's fine. There's no other quarterbacks that were anywhere near them, right? Jordan Love was the next guy, which Jordan Love is pretty good right now. But nevertheless, like Jordan Love was the next guy taken. And he got taken at 26 or 20 picks later, right? So,
yeah.
And so that's the thing for me. So I look at it and just say, okay, he deserves the credit, but let's not talk about it like he was like, oh, we were up, we weren't sure, no one really knew, and then he took the guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Should we? What other coaching hires do we have on the docket?
We can go down to Tennessee hasn't hired anyone yet. Oh no, Tennessee hired Callahan, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Cincinnati offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, he's good. He's good, and I think what he gets credit for this year so much is the fact that Burrow goes down, and that offense, although it doesn't stay quite as good as it was, but with a rookie undrafted quarterback, looks pretty good, right? Not amazing, but pretty good. The fact that he was able to coach him up that well and have him playing that well, I think that says a lot about it. And so that to me, I look at that and say like, okay, I get it. I don't know how much I love the hire, but I understand where they're coming from.
It's an out of the box hire, which again, a lot of this is going to come down to how much faith you have in that Titans front office. But you watch with the offense at become, and there's not a ton of talent there, but it did also feel stale at that point. So they might be saying, hey, we need to refresh with our offensive identity. So it's hard to judge because it is out of the box. It's not unconventional, but it's not really one that it didn't seem like they were in on the hot commodities. They were looking for something different. And time's going to tell if, were they looking for something different because there were the power struggle stuff in the front office was real and the GM wanted a younger head coach he could control and reestablish control of the organization? Or did they find the guy who they just, really liked and really thought would work?
Right.
So I'll let that one play out and see what happens there. And it's an intriguing one. Pats will play him too. Pats play in Tennessee and down in Nashville this season. So we'll get a taste of that one firsthand.
Yeah. Also, I think I may have said Browning was a rookie. He's obviously not a rookie. He's been playing for a few years, but he never started before this year and was an undrafted player out of Washington when he did come out. So, but nevertheless, so I think he gets credit for that, and we'll see. I think it's an interesting hire. It may not be the best hire, but I think it's an interesting hire.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, and then the Panthers hired someone. Oh my God! May God have mercy on this man's soul, Dave Canales.
No, none of that. This is the dream setup for him.
Yeah,
this man could just get a 6-year contract to be a head coach.
It's quite true.
With an owner who's known to throw around tons of money with probably a nice little buyout in it, with no expectations. If the Panthers are good, this man is a legend. If the Panthers aren't any good, it is not going to hurt his future stock towards becoming a head coach because of what that organization looks like, and he's going to get a buyout with a ton of money, and he'll be able to go take that and buy a nice little house for himself and his family. So it's a free shot at becoming a head coach for a young guy, and it's probably not going to work out because of how bad that organization is. But I like him. I think he's a good hire, and maybe he does fix them.
Yeah, I do think that's fascinating. And Thad Skywalker saying tag and trade Brian Burns to get a first-round pick this year, and that's not a terrible idea. I don't know if I think someone would definitely do that. I just don't know. I guess Brian Burns might be willing to do that. I mean, what difference does it make to Brian Burns, right? If he has a 1-year deal, he has that 1-year deal. If he signs it and you trade him before the negotiation period is up, he can then negotiate a new deal with the team that you trade him to. So I suppose you could do that as well. So I just they need a lot of help. They have a lot of holes.
Yeah.
Brian Burns like their one good player left. They have J.C. Horn, who's a very good player, but like Brian Burns is like their one good player left. And you trade him to get a first-round pick. I'd rather just re-sign the guy. Now, I know you're a long way away, but like he's not the oldest guy. Like I think it's not a bad idea to build around someone.
Well, wasn't the rumor the Rams offered 2 first-round picks for him like 2 seasons ago or something because they wanted him to come in, or might have been at the deadline a year and a half ago or something? Rumor was the Rams really wanted him, and they turned down that trade offer, which, man, as that franchise, I'm sure they wish they had those picks right now instead with how things have gone.
That's quite true. That's a good point.
Yeah, which is – and Brian Burns is a fantastic player, so maybe you just do extend him and keep him and make it work. But
Yep. So we'll see. Okay, and we talked about Mayo already, so we don't have to do that. The two openings that are currently open do not have a head coach are the Commanders and the Seattle Seahawks. Of course, the Seahawks had whatever happened with Pete Carroll, who I don't really know what happened, but something happened. He's going to the front office or whatever. I'm not really sure.
Putting him out to pasture.
Yes, basically, right. And so we'll see kind of who ends up there. And then, of course, you have Washington, who just fired Ron Rivera. It seems like both of those teams are going to want young, new guys. I could see Washington saying, Belichick, not that he's going to go to Washington. That one wouldn't shock me, only because I look at, a new owner wants to make a splash, new name, probably, hopefully. We can hope at least. But, I wonder, like, is it possible that he says, yeah, all right, let's make this, let's have it be Bill Belichick and see if we can win in NFC East. I don't know if they can, but let's see if they can,
Yeah. Well, and it seems they already came out and said they don't want him, which is like, I think the hire would make sense, but it really seems like Washington wants Ben Johnson, and that's the direction they're probably going. That's reading the tea leaves. Maybe they go somewhere else, but like, I don't know. Both of these jobs are like kind of weird positions. Seattle, I'm really not sure who they're going to end up with here. I haven't been following those interviews too closely, and it's a weird situation all around, but kind of a decent org. Like the organization seems well run most of the time. So they'll land on their feet.
So here's what's interesting to me, and Thad Skywalker says Mike Vrabel to the Seahawks, and I'm hoping that doesn't happen because my dad has been saying this to me literally for weeks since the second Mike Vrabel got fired in Tennessee. He's been saying this. Taylor Kyles was talking about it on Twitter today about Mike Vrabel coming in and being some sort of, my dad called it basically like a bench coach, right? Like a in baseball you have the bench coach who sits on the bench with the manager and kind of helps out. And so he wouldn't be the defensive coordinator because you want to have a young guy do that. I think it's beneficial to have a DeMarcus Covington or somebody like that to be your DC. But you have him be like your assistant head coach. And so he's there. He's in the building. They're talking about culture and they're talking about this and they're talking about that. And Vrabel's the perfect guy for that, I think. He's getting paid a boatload of money right now by Tennessee with his buyout. He doesn't need to get a new job right now. So he can stay a year at the Patriots, be an advisor or be, whatever it is, right? Again, assistant head coach, bench coach, whatever you want to call him. And then next year, assuming the Patriots, start doing well and people start talking about Vrabel again, next year he's able to go and kind of get that job. So I think that to me, I'd love to see that because I think Vrabel is a great leader. And you talk about Mayo being a leader of men, right? And I feel like Vrabel is kind of that same type of guy. I think it would be a really interesting match to kind of see what those two guys could do together. And then Vrabel could then move on and take a job that he would want later on down the line.
I think one of the concerns I have here is you want Gerard Mayo standing out on his own 2 feet here to a degree, and you don't want anybody looming over him.
Right.
Like you want him to be able to make his own decisions. So as an advisor, I'm in, but as long as it's clear that Mayo is the guy and Vrabel is an advisor. And I think you'd have to just be careful with the dynamics. I'm not opposed to the idea, but I do think you're not looking for help for Mayo on the defensive side. Really, that's where he knows. If it was an offensive advisor, I'd say sure. I'm all ears for that. Defensive, I'm a little bit more skeptical of exactly how much benefit you're going to get there. And Vrabel can help with the organizational stuff. So if he's going to be your Ernie Adams type guy, then yeah, that's something I can get behind. But this kind of segues into one of the other things with the Atlanta job. If Zach Robinson goes there, Jeff Howe had said the other day that sounds like that could send Josh McDaniels back to New England. And I there's hesitation there, and there's reasons to not be optimistic about that as a hire. But I think the thing that the best aspect of this is that Gerard Mayo is not an offensive guy, and that's the area where he needs the most help. And for all the issues with McDaniels, he has basically run an offense for himself. Like he did that by himself in New England for a decade. That was like all him making the calls there and doing things. And for all the issues with McDaniels, that as an offensive coordinator was something he was good at most of the time. It's not going to be some fancy offense. It's not going to be it's not going to be the McVay offense. It's going to be different than that. But we've seen him drop offenses for different guys and different styles. We know how much the New England offense varied in that time and how they had Cam Newton and made that work and how good they made Mac look in his rookie year. And we know how Josh McDaniels seemed to do a good job with Mac personally, like on a one-on-one relationship type thing. So Josh McDaniels isn't the type of offensive coordinator that gets you excited and makes you say, man, this is going to be an elite offense. But he did do a generally good job coaching offenses in New England, good enough to get multiple head coaching jobs out of it. And he was the guy behind the air raid stuff in 2007. I gave that credit to Belichick, but that was McDaniels who led to that. Going to believe like Leach about that stuff.
He did.
And like the other part is you're not going to worry about him getting hired away somewhere else. So like if you draft a quarterback and things do work with McDaniels and have a good relationship, you can probably feel confident that you're going to have that offensive coordinator / QB coach with that quarterback for a decade. You're not going to have to worry about that. As long as they're good, as long as you're happy with their performance, they're there, and you're not going to chase greener pastures.
Yeah, the only issue that I have with that offense is that I feel like it's very, very, very tough on the receivers. I feel like the receivers have a hard time with it. They have a hard time learning it and understanding that. And I want something different for our skill guys, and I want to have explosive skill guys who don't have to think about that stuff, who aren't, football savants. I mean, Randy Moss, as good as Randy Moss was on the football field, and trust me, he was incredibly good, exceptionally good. He was insanely smart. He could diagnose a defense in milliseconds. He'd walk up to the line and tell Brady, "Oh, here it is. You got me right here." Like he would know exactly what was going to happen before the play happened. And that type of stuff, that's incredible, obviously. But you can't expect every wide receiver to be able to do that. And every wide receiver can't do that. And so it's like, I don't want to have to depend on that to happen in order for my wide receivers to be successful. And that's where I feel like the offense that McDaniels has run is behind the times a little bit. And that's the biggest thing for me. So when people talk about, the modern offense, quote unquote, right? I'm not talking about some like crazy. I'm just saying like, just make things easier for the guys. Make it easier for them. And that's what I want. And if he can do that and it's not someone else, that's fine. I just want it to be easier.
Well, I think that the toughest part, too, is that McDaniels and Brady were essentially one in the offensive room for a long time. And how much of that complexity was McDaniels? How much was Brady? How much of that was the two of them coming together and say, we got a superhuman at quarterback with like a robot brain who can dissect defenses pre and post snap like this, and we can take advantage of it with a ton of sight adjustment, a ton of adjustments, and new game plans every week, and a huge mental load on the receivers. But it's okay because once they master it, it's like an unstoppable offense because of the decision maker that we have, because we're never going to be wrong.
Right.
And that's where I thought 2020, for as bad as the passing game was in 2020, those receivers were atrocious. We're talking about Damiere Byrd being like your wide receiver one, essentially. It's Damiere Byrd, Jacoby Myers before he was Jacoby Myers, N'Keal Harry. That was your receiving core.
Yeah.
And with a quarterback who couldn't throw, and they had good moments passing the ball. So things have now worked out in Vegas. Obviously, you saw the reaction there after McDaniels left, and that is highly concerning before you bring him in.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have the culture issues, if that's not a thing here, which I think wasn't an issue under Bill, it's a different leader now. That's something you have to be concerned about. If you don't have that, and he is able to create an offense that is a little bit simpler and can work for getting receivers out there, I can get behind it. We don't know if the 2020. I got to go back into my 2021 film study, but I don't remember that offense being particularly complex for the receivers. I thought it was simpler than what they'd had in 2019, the last year of Brady. Like, I thought they cut down on some of the stuff in part because they had a rookie quarterback and it was fine.
Right.
So I just think if McDaniels is your guy, you got to beef up the offensive line. You got to invest more in the offensive line because running game is huge for him. Running instead of play action is huge for what he does. They like a ton of different run actions and versatile offensive linemen. And the last part of McDaniels here, and I can't believe I'm saying it, and I hope this isn't really part of their decision making, but mentioned that he made Mac look good in 2021. We heard Gerard Mayo talking a lot about confidence at the quarterback position and how important that is. If they're looking at this draft and saying we don't like any of the quarterbacks available, and they're going to sign a quarterback to compete with Mac, but they think McDaniels can maybe make him look half decent while they look for another guy. I don't know. I mean, I've given up on Mac. I don't think he's ever going to be a good quarterback. But if they feel like he's actually been good in the meetings, and it really is just an issue of confidence and a leader who he has a relationship with, like McDaniels, might bring something better out of him. And we talked about the lack of cohesion they've had on offense, and bring back a guy who people know could help. I don't know exactly where that leads you. And I think any path to success for New England involves drafting a quarterback who isn't Mac Jones and developing him. You're not banking on him panning out, and I would still prefer you trade him. But I do wonder if they go into the season with a quarterback room of Mac Jones and Jacoby Brissett, and you draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and whoever your top tackle is in the second round, and throw around some money in free agency. I do wonder where that gets you.
Golly. I mean, that's craziness. But yeah, I get it. I know, and that's one of those interesting things. So look, I think
I don't like saying it.
I'll tell you what, I heard Prospects to Pros had what's his name on Jim Nagy on, and he was talking up Spencer Rattler, and I'm like, interesting. And I'm like, no, don't do it.
Did you hear what else he said on that too? Which, by the way, I think it's good to repeat for all the listeners here. They mentioned how they had a hard time with the Senior Bowl this year, but they mentioned part of it is that there's like no juniors coming out for the draft.
Yeah,
there's usually like over 100 juniors that declare for the draft, and this year it's like 50. Because guys are going back to school for NIL money, which is great for player development and great for the sport of college football. But this year's day 3 in particular sounds like it's going to be a wasteland. A lot of people were talking about how at the end of this draft, there's not a lot of talent. And that's something I'd started to pick up on going through some of the guys. I do cursory scouting, look at big boards and go look at stats for these guys, watch a highlight tape, check out a PFF grade, what's the deal on this guy? The number of day 3 guys where it's like, as a 6th-year player who's been mediocre his whole career, and he's projected to go in the 6th round. And I'm like, what is up with this?
Yeah, that's not, I don't like that. Yeah, no, it's not great. It's not great. And I think that's, yeah, I don't know I'm not sure where we're headed. And I'm not sure what's going to happen there. But goodness sake, man. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see, right? But it is going to be interesting. And I do think, you talk about the rankings, and I think the rankings is going to be interesting to see how things change after the combine and after the 2 bowls, right? The Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl.
One this week. One's coming up, right?
Yeah, I think the Shrine Bowl is this week, I think, or this weekend. No, next week? I think the Shrine Bowl is next week.
February 1st for the Shrine Bowl.
Yeah, so that's next Friday? Thursday? Next Thursday.
The Senior Bowl is February 3rd, the Saturday.
Yeah. So, but you kind of see, like, things are all over the place. Like, guys are all over the place, right? And even, especially, like, the tackles, the wide receivers, like, from website to website you go, and it's like, on PFF, the guy's ranked, like, 20th, but on, PFN, the guy's ranked, like, 60th. And, so it's, like, it's funny, or, like, the other way around, where some guys higher and some guys lower. So I think that, that's going to kind of all play itself out as we kind of get closer. But I do think, and I also wonder, like, I know Caleb Williams is the number 1 guy right now. He's 6'1". Now, Mahomes only 6'2". I get it. But, like, is there a possibility? Is there a world where Jayden Daniels passes him and Jayden Daniels becomes that guy that, like, you have to get him? He could be, that he could be, what's it called? That he could be the next Lamar Jackson, right? And I don't know if he can, but, like, that's one of those things for me that, like, I'm curious to see where that goes, because right now there's a lot of questions as to what's going to happen there. So, anyways, but that's that. So I think that to me is kind of where we're headed, and that's what I'm excited about. Obviously, my mock draft is coming out on Monday, so I'm excited about that. Light Engine asked a question about, do we know what the Bears are doing? Let's just really quick, can we get into that? Because I think they hired an offensive coordinator, and I think that the offensive coordinator for me is interesting, right?
Because was the Seattle guy, right?
It's the Seattle guy, Shane Waldron. And I think that, as much as Shane Waldron, see, to me, and this is just me, if I'm the Bears and I'm drafting a rookie quarterback, right, and I'm not 100% sold on Eberflus, and I don't think they are, I'm not letting Eberflus draft the rookie quarterback. I'm not letting him do that. That's just my personal opinion. If I'm drafting, I have the number 1 pick. If I'm drafting Caleb Williams to be my quarterback, I'm also hiring a new coach.
Well, not just. I mean, the whole thing. It's this right? Again. For the Bears, were in this position. If you don't trust the head coach to make the quarterback pick, if you don't trust him to be involved in that decision, why is he your head coach? He shouldn't be involved. Then you shouldn't. If you don't think he's going to be around in a year, you just get rid of him now and reset the building now.
Right. And listen, you're not wrong. But I think, I don't know how you can watch the Bears this year and think that Matt Eberflus is the guy long term. I just don't know how you can watch them and think that. And so I think there are still some question marks with him. And then if you draft Caleb Williams and it doesn't work, now you're in a situation where I'm firing the coach after Caleb Williams' first year, and now he's getting a brand new head coach and a brand new system and a brand new everything. And so I almost look at Shane Waldron and I wonder, okay, Shane Waldron gets hired. What did he just do? He just, in Seattle, resurrected Geno Smith's career. Could he come to Chicago and do the same thing with Justin Fields? And not that Justin Fields has to have his career resurrected, but could he get Justin Fields on the path that Geno Smith is on? Well, and I wonder if that's where it's headed.
Well, I think he's very much stylistically a guy who works with any of the 3 names, Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, or Drake May, if that's a guy who they end up getting into this conversation here for Chicago. You got the rehab and an older quarterback there and Geno Smith and making that work. And it's an offense in Seattle that has been predicated on a lot of big plays and deep shots. And Drake May and Caleb Williams, that's both huge areas of their game where you could take advantage of that with a young coach. So, I don't think the Bears are tipping their hand here at all as to which direction they're going to go with quarterback.
Right.
I still do expect it to be. I would put it this way: I don't know if the Bears take Caleb Williams, but I do think Caleb Williams goes with the number 1 overall pick. I don't think if it's not the Bears, it's somebody moving up.
Right.
But yeah, it's a weird situation there in Chicago. Weird vibes all around, and it feels like they're probably going to mess up the pick again.
Kind of feels that way, doesn't it? It kind of feels that way. So we'll see. I'm interested to kind of see where that goes. But nevertheless,
and
so all right.
Don't they have to pay Justin soon? Yeah, I think they have to decide on the 5th-year option now after this.
I think it's like March 1st or something like that. It's early
before the new league year. Yeah,
before the new league year. Yeah.
So, and if they don't, it would be up after the season. Like if they like Justin Fields, you give them the Jordan Love deal probably, where it's like you add an extra year but at a cheaper amount. But like,
I suppose that's true.
That? Like I don't know
why
he did that in Chicago.
Yeah. It's a good point. And Dad says that the Bears should draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and Brock Bowers. That'd be insane. But of course, that means you're keeping Justin Fields, which I don't think is the worst idea. Like imagine DJ Moore, Marvin Harrison, and Brock Bowers with Fields as your quarterback. That's pretty solid. I think.
Did you watch the JT O'Sullivan breakdown on Justin Fields?
No, I'm sure it wasn't good.
I didn't watch the whole thing, but it was from their Week 18 game. And very early on, JT O'Sullivan had to say, hey, cover your earmuffs on this one. Don't let the kids in the room. Because he was letting it fly, just cursing out Justin Fields for some of his decisions. Basically, like day one stuff that he was getting wrong. So I just – if it were Justin Fields as a rookie versus some of these other guys, it's a decision. But when you got a whole brand new contract with 5 years on it versus 1 year or 2 years for Fields, just reset the clock here, and
I agree.
It's silly not to. Even if you like Fields, he is a prospect now. If Caleb Williams played as well as, and I think you'd expect Caleb Williams to play as well this year as Justin Fields, kind of at a minimum with what you're getting out of him.
Well, you'd certainly hope so, right? I don't know if he will, but you'd certainly hope so. So we'll see. I don't know. There's a lot of question marks. And I think, as I said in my article on Pat's Pulpit, I think that the Patriots draft starts with Chicago. I think that the Patriots are at 3. You have an interesting decision you can make, right? Do you, if you can't stay at 3, do you draft Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3? Do you, trade back and pick up a first-round pick next year and something else, right? Something like to Atlanta. Let's just say Atlanta falls in love with Marvin Harrison Jr. and they're going to give you 8.43 in their first-round pick next year. Now, I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but they could. So now you move back to 8. You picked up another top 50 pick, and you pick up an extra first-rounder next year. You draft, one of the offensive tackles or one of the other wide receivers at 8. Then you have 2 early second-round picks. You can either package them both up and move up, for whomever or whatever, right? You trade your 3rd round pick for Fields. Your 3rd this year. Maybe it's your 3rd this year and a 3rd next year or whatever, right? But like you make that move for Fields. Now you have a quarterback that you feel like, okay, we're good at least for now. I don't know if he's the guy forever, but we're good for now. And then we see where it goes. But we build up the offense around him, and we kind of do it that way. And so I don't know if I love it, but it may not be a terrible alternative to drafting the 3rd best quarterback at number 3. I just don't know if I love that.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. We're gonna see how this goes. But I'm just of the opinion that if there's a quarterback on the board who you think can be a franchise guy, and you're skeptical about the guy you have right now being a franchise guy, you go take the guy who you think could be a franchise guy. Like I think I think you should be very aggressive at the quarterback position. That's kind of my feel for it. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what they actually end up doing. But I think Chicago would be silly not to take Caleb Williams and just do the simple thing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. So,
I know. All right, I know we have our segments at the end. I have one more word I want to get in before we get there.
Let's do it.
did you see what the Patriots posted on Twitter yesterday, Wednesday?
You talking about the
03 team, the
03 team?
uncoached 03
Yeah.
team. This is,
Gross.
and here's the thing. I'm going to give one pass here. I'm going to give one pass here because I think there's a couple possibilities. I think it's possible that this, well, for the context, Patriots posted a video of highlights of the 03 team announcing like a podcast talking about the 03 team without a single clip of Bill Belichick anywhere in it, which was very notable, like a 2-minute long video to not have a single shot of the head coach. If this was put together by the social team after seeing the amount of hate Bill Belichick has gotten from Patriots fans over the last 2, 3, 4 seasons at times, because they said he's not our coach anymore and we're going to try to distance him. And they didn't realize, how this was going to be perceived by people. They get a pass on that front.
Right.
And if it was put together by the front office, or they had say this, and their feeling was, hey, he's not our coach anymore, and as of right now, he's taking interviews for other teams, and we love him, but we're not going to put him in our hype videos as long as he's coaching other teams, I'll give you a one video pass for that. Because maybe you didn't realize how this was going to be taken. But as a fan, watching that of this team, after what we saw 2 weeks ago in that press conference, it felt a lot like, the ownership distancing them. And if you've noticed on social media, there have been a lot of positive posts about Robert Kraft and how cool he is in the last 2 weeks, which again could be an organizational, reset. He's the figurehead right now. He's the longest tenured guy with the team, and it makes sense to kind of present him that way.
And he's the owner.
Yeah, it is his team. But, with the Wickersham article or articles that have come out over the last decade, it does make you question things about, what the incentives are of the people involved in this. And Bill, you cannot tell the story of the franchise of the New England Patriots without Bill Belichick as not just in it, as a main character in that story.
That's correct.
And I don't care. I would not care if he's coaching for another team. Show him in that.
Right.
I haven't gone back and checked 2020 to see if they stopped posting highlight videos with clips of Tom Brady in them, but I doubt it.
I
doubt they ignored that entire era. Let's not do that with Bill. Even if he goes and coaches elsewhere, that's our guy, and don't remove him. Just if you want to show him less, you can show him less right now if he's coaching for another team. That's fine. Don't entirely remove him from the video. That is so obvious and makes me have some trust issues with the decision makers.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's a good point. It's a really good point. By the way, someone had mentioned earlier they wanted us to talk to the Celtics, and I don't necessarily want to talk about the Celtics, but I will give you one stat if you want to talk about how insane the Celtics were tonight. And it's one stat that comes courtesy of Taylor Snow. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just put on one of the best tandem two-way efforts in NBA history. They're the first teammates in NBA history to log 30-plus points, 2-plus blocks, and 0 turnovers in the same game. That is outrageous. I mean, you talk about, and they won by, 30-some-odd points against Miami. They won by 33 against Miami. Let's see, Tatum. 30. No, that's not right. Oh, maybe that must have been an old stat because that wasn't from tonight.
That might have been from the game before.
Maybe it was the game before. Someone sent me that stat because we were talking about how crazy the game was, and I was like, I hadn't been on Twitter, and so I was like, oh wow, look at that. Nope. Yeah. Thanks a lot, you jerk. But Tatum. I mean, you look at the scoring. I will say, the other stat I think was from tonight. Was about how many shots they hit, right? And I looked at it. They showed something about they were the first team. The first team in history to have 5 players make 3+3s and 3+2 pointers in the same game.
Oh, that's sick. Yeah. And it's nice to do it in Miami because that place has been a house of horrors. And, honestly, not even that building. It's just been playing Miami. We've actually done kind of well there at points.
Right. That's true.
But it's for as many issues as there are with the Patriots right now, and as many issues as there are with the Red Sox right now. It's nice that the Celtics are the Celtics and look dominant. I mean, obviously, assuming guys stay healthy, we're looking at Porzingis with an injury tonight, so let's make sure that's all right there.
Right.
You're kind of just waiting for the postseason to start now and waiting ahead because you're making it, and you're going to be the best team in the East there. Even if you're not the number 1 seed, everybody is going to know that's the best team. If they fall off a little bit, and it's just all right, make it through, get back to the finals. And the expectations for this group are championship. That's where we are. And that's what they should be. This is not the best team, a top 3 team in the sport this year. Like, they should be in the finals, and they should be competitive, if not winning it. And the Bruins, you lose Krejci and Bergeron and Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno and a whole bunch of guys.
Yep.
And top of the
Somehow
East,
look better.
Right now, win tonight in Ottawa. So that's nice. The winter sports are keeping us through here.
Sure are. They sure are. So it should make for an exciting early summer. We'll see what happens in the later parts of the summer, but the early summer at least should be entertaining with some playoff matchups.
We all know the feeling of like that first Sunday in October, the last Sunday in September, when you get that cool breeze come in while you're watching the Patriots game. I have a very similar relationship with when the first warm breezes start coming in the spring and you're watching hockey and it's the end of the regular season and the intensity's ramping up. And I'm looking forward to that. I know we got the draft and all the Patriots stuff, but it's going to be nice. I love the Patriots. I'm excited to talk about what's going to happen in the next couple of months. It's going to be toxic by the end of April. It's going to be good to have some successful teams to watch to step away from that. If you think Patriots fans are bad, now we're going to be at each other's throats by then talking about what they should do in the draft.
That's quite true. And TJ does make a good point that a lot of the people in here that are watching are not necessarily Boston sports fans. They're Patriot sports fans, but not Boston sports fans. And so I get that. I do understand that.
Fans of? Drop it in the chat.
Yeah, drop that in the chat. Who your other teams are. But unfortunately, you're gonna have to listen to it because I'm certainly not gonna sit here and talk about Philly unless they're losing. So, But nevertheless, all right. So let's get into our final few segments here. We're running long, surprisingly, and so let's get into our final few segments. As always, let's do the predictions. Yeah, let's do the predictions. So last week we talked about it already on Monday. Sunday. I went 1-3. You went 3-1. I just had a terrible week. Whatever. That's to be expected at this point. And so you were looking at the lines. I think we both know who we're picking anyways, no matter what. And Skinny Pete says that he's a San Antonio Spurs fan, and that's awfully nice.
Ooh.
He is so much fun to watch.
The wacky inflatable arm flailing tube man at center. So much fun to watch. Our lines for Sunday. Should we start in the AFC Championship in Baltimore for the first time since the Colts hosted it back in the day? Ravens Chiefs. Ravens favored by 3.5 points. Who are you taking, Pat?
I'm doing it. Ravens -3.5. I just, I should bet the Chiefs because I want the Ravens to win. I wonder if I'm interested. I wonder if I can do that. Like, I want the Ravens, and I think that the Ravens and the Niners are going to win. Like, maybe I bet the Chiefs. I really want the Lions to win, but maybe I bet the Chiefs and the Niners, and then maybe the Ravens and the Lions will win, and I'll get the actual matchup that I want. I don't know, but that's what I'm thinking.
I just want we already saw the Lions play both of these teams in the regular season. I think the Ravens killed them in that Chiefs-Lions game. It could be fun to get a rematch of that, but it's less fun to get the rematch when the underdog already won. Like if the Chiefs won the first one, but it was close, and the Lions were going for an upset and some revenge, that'd be more fun. But I just think I want the two best teams. I want Ravens-Niners. I think that'd be a fantastic game. I'm going to take the Ravens. I'm going to be honest. I will engage with this just for a second here. The whole Brady Mahomes thing that has somehow come up with the last week. Why this week? What about what Mahomes did last week is what put people over the top?
Yeah, I have no idea.
He was great. Like he was normal Mahomes. He was fantastic on the road in the playoffs. But that was that's what quarterbacks do on the road in the playoffs when they're very good at what they do. And this is what Mahomes has been. And one of the reasons he looks so good is receivers finally showed up in the way that they haven't all season long. And I don't think that's going to be the case again. Do you think those? I just don't believe that these Chiefs receivers who have been inconsistent all year long are suddenly going to do it 2 times in a row on the road in the playoffs in tough environments. I think last week had a lot more to do with that Bills defense being incredibly hurt,
Yeah.
and the reason it was as good as it was, and guys not being very good. Ravens
When
have
I,
an elite defense,
yeah.
and I just think they're going to take it to them. And obviously, the Chiefs will still score. It's Mahomes, and they got a really good offense, even with the inconsistencies. But Ravens defense is elite. Offense is elite. I think the Ravens probably score on the Chiefs like the Bills did, or more. And you're not going to have the offensive production from KC. I won't be shocked if the Ravens win this by 10 plus.
Yeah. Oh, and I really do think that. And I think it's funny because it works out. I think it could work out really funny in the fact that you could have a situation where all anyone's talked about all week is Mahomes, 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 Mahomes. And then you get into the game and they lose by 10 points, right? And it's like, all we've been talking about all week was Mahomes. And it's like, oh, yeah, we forgot the Ravens are actually really good. Looks like they're getting Mark Andrews back. They're going to have the two-headed monster with Andrews and Likely and Zay Flowers and OBJ and, what's his name from who's the kid from Arizona State? No, not Arizona State. Minnesota. What's the wide receiver? What the hell's his name? Bateman.
Rashad Bateman.
Right. So they have guys, right, that like they have skill position players, right? And so they're a good team. Lamar's a great quarterback. Lamar's probably going to MVP, right? And so it's all these things, right? And so I think that's the fascinating part for me is that everyone all week's going to be talking about Mahomes and Mahomes catching Brady and this and that and this and that. And all of a sudden he's going to lose in the AFC Championship game. And then all the people, well, I mean, he didn't have the receivers and he wasn't, and it's going to be nonstop excuse central, and I'm going to love it. So I cannot root for the Chiefs. I can't bring myself to do it. I'm going Ravens 3.5.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And like the Ravens, for all the talk about it, like Mahomes is fantastic. Mahomes is a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. The Ravens' passing offense has been better than the Chiefs' passing offense this year, and it really isn't that close.
Right.
Which again does have to do with the supporting cast. It's a team sport. I don't think Mahomes suddenly got worse, but they designed a really good offense for Lamar Jackson, who's incredibly smart and an accurate passer, and bring it to its full potential with some receivers who fit what they want to do really well. And then Chiefs have injuries. Joe Tooney's banged up, and that's going to be really tough for them. So I'm taking the Chiefs in this one, and I don't think it's not the Chiefs, the Ravens, and I don't think it's close.
Okay. What's the other one? What's the line? What's the line on that Lions game?
Niners favored by 7 points in the NFC Championship game, hosting the Lions. Which direction are you going?
Man, so all right. You know what? And I've gone back and forth. I'm going Lions +7 because for a multitude of reasons. I don't know if the Lions will win. I do think the Lions will play hard and will make it a game. Now, maybe they'll lose by 10, but I do think it's close enough that they might win. They might only lose by 5 or 4 or even 3. And I think then that's a situation where they cover but don't get into the Super Bowl. I think the Lions make it a game, and whether they win or not is up for debate. I'm not sure, but I do think they make it a game.
Yeah, I'm going to fully agree with you here. I have the Lions covering, but I think San Francisco still does end up winning. I think we saw that that Niners defense has some holes in the running game in particular that the Packers were able to expose last week. And I think that is something that the Lions are definitely going to be able to take advantage of. But I also think it's probably going to be just a little bit too much for Detroit on the road. I think there's just too much talent for San Francisco, even with, even if Deebo Samuel isn't playing or is, 50% of what he usually brings to the table. I just think San Francisco is a fundamentally better team here. I think we just saw the Lions play two very, we talked about, everybody's reacting to the Niners just playing a close game and scraping out of it. We just saw the Lions do the same thing 2 weeks in a row, and teams are close in the NFC. And I think this will again be close, but I think the Niners are just, a better team here.
Yeah. And I think you're right about that. And so Thad Skywalker just mentions, and I'll throw it up here, but he's saying that, he could see the Niners killing the Lions because if you rattle Goff, they won't stand a chance. The one difference about that is that I do think that the Patriots were able to stop the run in that game. I just think San Fran, like you mentioned, just got exposed in the running game against Green Bay, and the Lions have absolutely no problem just running the ball down your face. And, and so down your face, through your face, I don't know, down your throat, however you want to say it.
Up your face, yeah.
Right, up your face, right, whatever, right? So but the idea for me is that they'll run it, and they got no problem just running it nonstop. And so I think that they'll take the burden off of Jared Goff a little bit. They'll throw some of those quick passes to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then run, play action, and you're going up top to Jameson Williams and seeing if you can hit a deep shot, right, and score quickly. So I think that those are the kind of where I'm looking at. I don't know if they're going to have a chance to win. I don't know if they're going to be able to win, but I do think that they're going to keep it close. Now, they might get blown out. You never know, but I think that they're going to keep it close, and they might even win. And so I'm keeping my options open for the Lions winning because, man, wouldn't it be so great to see the Lions in the Super Bowl? I think that'd be so awesome.
I just don't need to see Jared Goff in another Super Bowl. I feel like I've done that and I'm okay. I don't need seconds. But
you're not wrong with that.
It's a different Jared Goff now. I do acknowledge that.
It is. Yeah.
I will say the Niners' pass defense is elite, and they're at their best defending the center of the field where the Lions like to attack. So,
right.
Fred Warner, I think, kind of becomes a huge piece in this game, roving the middle of the field as a run defender and as a pass defender. That's the guy the Lions are going to be attacking. And if they do it successfully, they probably find a way to win this game. But if Fred Warner makes enough plays, if he's able to get a pick in there somewhere, get his hand on some balls and deflect them, might be a tough night for Detroit. So I'm excited to see how this one plays out. I think we're going to get two entertaining games. I think we're going to have some fun storylines, and maybe the NFL nailed it and ends up being Chiefs-Lions, and we get the same game bookending the season. That would be something if they nailed it with a Thursday night opener.
Yeah, that would be wild, wouldn't it? So, all right. You want to do a trivia question, and then we'll finish with This Week in Sports History, right?
Yeah.
All
So
right.
we got a fun one. Last week's question was about which Patriots head coach, not which Patriots head coach. Saying Patriots head coach Gerard Mayo recorded his first career interception in 2011 against which former Indianapolis Colts quarterback. That was Dan Orlovsky. That was the 1 year the Colts, took a step back without Peyton Manning and tanked to go get Andrew Luck. So Gerard Mayo able to get a pick at Dan Orlovsky in that one. Congrats to Thad Skywalker, who has 2 in a row now. Actually, a little hot streak going for Thad.
Killing it.
Today's question. Today is January 25th, and the number 25 is also the jersey number that this 3-time Super Bowl champ wore with the Patriots in his first stint with the team.
Ooh, okay.
Can you name which Patriot I'm talking about?
Okay.
Pat, do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
I think people are going to be able to get this one. But we'll test some memories here. It's a Patriot legend who had a number and then left, came back.
I would hope so.
Had
we'll
a
see.
different number. Yeah. And yeah, by the way, TJ had said in there that he's a Blue Jays fan, Canadian up there. So that's his
rough stuff.
His baseball team. We got a AL East rivalry.
And if he's a Leafs fan too, yikes. That's
I can
tough.
accept. I can tolerate you being a Blue Jays fan, TJ. Don't tell me you're a Leafs fan.
It's also just the devastation and heartbreak. I mean, it's just terrible.
Yeah, I for one feel bad for you. A little 4-1 joke in there, Pat.
Oh, that's brutal. It's brutal. By the way, Thad Skywalker got it. I will say my dad did text me before Thad sent it in the chat. So with the correct answer, by the way. But
okay, we'll do. Yeah, well, it's your dad's not in the chat.
TJ goes, I won't tell you then. He says, "Hey, listen, I feel bad for you. It is what it is. What are you gonna do? You know what I mean?
I do. The Leafs,
you love who you love, and it just is what it is. You know.
The Leafs have had some good teams too. Like I have some empathy there for the heartbreak that's gone on because the Leafs are they don't deserve to be this bad. Like they've had good enough teams to win some playoff series.
Right.
Yeah.
So
time for on this day in sports history.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Hold on, I always forget to hit the don't loop thing because it just always loops back again. So.
And now for something we think you'll really like. This week in sports history.
Okay, so you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I can do mine first.
Go ahead.
Pulling from my ever trusty page day calendar over here. This has made this so easy for me. Going back to 1934.
Oh.
So the New York Giants had won this is the baseball Giants, had won the World Series in 1933. And on this day in 1934, player manager Bill Terry declared we should win again, citing three of their rivals, the Cardinals, the Cubs, and the Pirates, as their threats to repeating the feat. He was asked if their crosstown rival, the Dodgers, would be, somebody who could stop them. He said, the Dodgers, are they still in the league? And then later on that season, after blowing a 7-game lead in September, the Giants were tied for first place with St. Louis, headed into the final 2 games of the season against the 6th place Dodgers, lost both games, losing the pennant in the process.
Love it.
Yeah, some old school baseball for you.
Okay. There. All right, a little old school baseball. I like that. I have two. One is a double. And so it's actually tomorrow, not today, which I guess if you're listening on podcast form, it is today. But on January 25th, 1986, and on January 25th, 1997, the Patriots lost the Super Bowl in Louisiana. 1986, of course, to Chicago, and 1997, of course, to Green Bay, losing both of those games. Interestingly enough, both of those games feature an MVP that was not an offensive player, which is rare. It's rare for Super Bowls to not have an MVP of an offensive player. Of course, the Green Bay game was Desmond Howard, of course. Do you know who the MVP was of Super Bowl 20?
Is it, man, I'm an 8. Is it William Perry?
It is not William Perry. No.
Was he on that team, or am I getting that?
He was on that team, and people, not people, but there's a few people that are salty about it because he got a goal line carry when instead of giving Walter Payton a goal line carry. So Walter Payton never scored a touchdown in that game, but William Perry did, which is kind of silly.
Was Dick Butkus on that team?
I don't think Butkus was on that team. I think Butkus was there earlier.
Was it a linebacker for the Bears?
It was a defensive end / outside.
Yeah, I'm not going to get the name. Then who is it?
Richard Dent was the guy.
Yeah.
So he's just a guy that couldn't tell you what he looked like. I know his number was 95, but I just memorized that. Of course, it's the Patriots, right? So I had memorized that when I was a little kid because I was looking through and who won the MVP of this one, and that was a name that always stuck with me, Richard Dent. So Richard Dent was the MVP of that. So 46
not a good game for the Patriots. Didn't they score first and then not again or something?
They scored. I think they went up 3-0 and then they got absolutely annihilated the rest of the way. So, but yes, they did have the lead, and also
they did make it.
That's true. And also today, Chad Ryland must have not been the kicker. So, but also today on the 25th. 1985, Wayne Gretzky, who you talk about goats. Wayne Gretzky is the goat of goats
for hockey.
And he's the one that I think, to me, there's no argument. I think there's no argument with Brady. I think there's no argument with Brady, but people will argue it anyways. You can't argue the Gretzky one. The stats are too ridiculous.
He's got his number retired everywhere.
Yes. So 1985. Wayne Gretzky scored his 50th goal in the 49th game of the season, which is just so stupid. My favorite Gretzky stat is that you could eliminate every single goal he's ever scored in his career, and he would still be the all-time leader in points, which is just so stupid. It's just the most ridiculous stat of all time. So there you go. Also, my dad points out that the Patriots scored first and last in that Super Bowl. So they went up 3-0. The Bears scored 46 straight, and then the Patriots scored a touchdown at the end to make it 46-10. So there you go.
I believe the Patriots switched quarterbacks in the middle of that game too.
It started with Tony East and he went to Grogan.
If you're switching quarterbacks in a Super Bowl, the only time switching quarterbacks in a championship game has ever worked out was when Bama did it with Tua and Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, not ideal. So, and Cam Neely did do that too. My dad pointed out to me, and I think Nick Knaps in the chat said that he did 50 and 39 at some point as well, and that also might be true. But this one was just for 85, and it happened to be on this day, which is why I said so.
Yeah. We're at hour 45. I was just turning into a 2-hour radio slot for us.
I know. So, anyways, well, thanks guys for listening. As always, we appreciate you. We love you. Do you want to do Monday again since my mock draft is coming out Monday? We can talk about the mock.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do a Monday night show.
All right, so let's do Monday night. We'll do a mock draft show on Monday night. Kind of go through it. We'll talk about a little bit of it and kind of go from there. And then so we'll do Monday night and then we'll do Thursday night again, and that'll be that.
Yeah.
All right. And hopefully we'll have some news on something. Maybe the Patriots will hire an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. We'll see what happens.
Special teams coordinator. Yeah.
Maybe a special teams guy. You never know. We'll do a little bit of a Senior Bowl preview next week since the Senior Bowl.
They did sign Michael Jordan since the last time we saw you guys.
Great point. Get the GOAT back, which is cool. So it's always fun. That's always a fun one with all the Michael Jordan memes and GIFs and everything like that coming out.
Yeah, for those who didn't see it, he's like a rotational backup guard whose name is also Michael Jordan, who they signed to a futures contract.
Well, and that's the best part, that he's guard Michael Jordan. It's just the best.
Yes.
Yeah. So so I love it. So anyways, all right, well, thanks everyone, and we'll talk to you on Monday night.